every story can change the world. Together we are Global Speakers Talk.
Have you ever noticed that the more capable you are, the more that everything seems to rest on your shoulders? Somewhere along the way, being reliable and capable became exhausting. For those of you who I'm meeting for the first time, I'm Lisa Pinnock, educator, life coach, and author. And my work centers around helping high-achieving individuals create success that is actually sustainable. And this pattern that I'll be speaking about today, overfunctioning, it's something that I'm familiar with on a professional level and also on a personal one. I remember a time when it seemed like everything was working. I was in the middle of launching 2 books from our book series, Uncover Your Light, Empowering Stories of Hope and Resilience. And in that process, I was supporting 39 authors from across Canada, the US, and in the UK, most of them being first-time writers, to find their voice and write their stories. And also because, to make things interesting, we launched both books within a week of each other. I don't think I'll do that again. At the same time, I was also teaching music full-time and at 4 different schools. So showing up for my students every day was also important. So on the outside, everything looks successful, productive, even exciting. But on the inside, it felt very different. I was constantly thinking ahead, tracking details, planning what was next, anticipating needs, and making sure nothing fell through the cracks. My mind really never turned off, and my energy was stretched thin. There were moments when I could feel just how close I was to running on empty. But I still kept going, not because I had to, but because I was so used to being the one who could. What I came to realize during that time is this wasn't just stress. This was a pattern. And I feel it's important for us to name that pattern. Overfunctioning is when your capability becomes your default, and you start carrying more than is actually yours to hold. For many high-achieving entrepreneurs, this doesn't happen all at once. It happens gradually, over time. And here's the part that makes the pattern so difficult to recognize. This doesn't come from weakness. In fact, it comes from strength, from being capable, from being dependable, from being the one who cares deeply about what you do. But when that strength goes unchecked, it slowly turns into strain. And let's face it, the world often rewards us for it. You're seen as the one who can handle things, the one who shows up, the one who gets it done. And so the cycle continues. But here's the thing that we should really recognize. There is a cost to this. So when you become the one that people rely on, the one that steps in before others even ask, anticipating needs, solving problems, keeping things moving, over time, that becomes who you are. And the thing is, we don't usually question it because it's working. Things are getting done, people are supported, you're seen as dependable. So it doesn't immediately register as a problem. It just becomes your normal. But then something interesting happens. Even when you try to take a step back, or when there's an opportunity for you to pause, it feels uncomfortable, sometimes even unproductive, because you've become so used to being in motion, to being the one who holds it all, that stillness can seem unfamiliar. And if you're listening to this and you're thinking, yeah, but this just sounds like being responsible. You're not wrong, but there is a difference between being responsible and being over responsible. So let's talk for a moment about the cost to this. And even if it's not obvious right away, here's the thing. When you're always on, your mind is constantly tracking, managing, thinking ahead. You're carrying the mental load, not just of the work that you do, but often of the responsibilities of others as well. And over time, that begins to build. Sometimes it shows up as exhaustion, sometimes as a quiet resentment, sometimes as a sense of disconnection. It can show up as disconnection to yourself, to your energy, to your clarity, and from your ability to even enjoy what you're creating. This is the part that can be confusing because on the outside, you're still functioning at a high level. Things are still getting done. You're still showing up. But internally, you're depleted. You can be highly capable and still be completely exhausted. And what can start to happen over time is that even when you do have that space to rest, you don't fully land in it. Your mind, it's still going on a loop. You're still thinking about what's next, what needs attention, what might fall through the cracks. So even your rest doesn't always feel like rest. And that's often the moment when people start to realize something needs to shift. So let's talk about what that shift can look like. It's not about doing less. It's about becoming more intentional about what you're carrying. It's about recognizing that not everything you're holding is yours to hold in the first place. So overfunctioning lives in that place of a constant push, the push to do more, to respond quickly, to solve things, fix things, manage things. But sustainable leadership, that requires something different. It requires the pause. And to be clear, the pause isn't about falling behind. It isn't about losing momentum. It's actually the way that you can come back to yourself. It's how you reconnect with your clarity, your energy, your capacity to choose instead of reacting. Because awareness on its own, that's a powerful thing, but it's not always enough. At some point, we need to begin shifting our perspectives in real time. Not perfectly, but intentionally. So let's talk a bit about what those shifts can look like in practice. I want to offer you 3 simple ideas, not as something else to add to your plate, but as a way to begin relating to your capacity in a different way. So first is to notice the pattern. Awareness is key. So start asking yourself, where am I stepping in automatically? Not because I've been asked, but because I can. This is often where overfunctioning lives. It's in those moments when no one has explicitly asked you to do something, but you pick it up anyway. How many can relate? Maybe it looks like responding to texts and emails right away. Maybe it's solving something before it's even an issue. Maybe it's carrying the emotional weight of a situation that isn't actually yours. And I want to be clear that this isn't about judging yourself. It's about gently noticing, ah, there it is again. That's all. And without immediately acting or trying to solve it. Because the truth is, you can't shift a pattern until you've actually seen it clearly. Step 2, pause before responding. And I know this one can feel uncomfortable because when you're used to being the one who responds quickly, who steps in, who solves things and keeps everything moving, taking a pause can feel like you're dropping the ball, but you're not. What you're doing, in fact, is creating space, even for a few seconds, a breath, a moment that can interrupt the automatic response that's on board. And in that space, you can move from habit into choice. And that's the space where your true leadership lives. So instead of immediately stepping in, you can begin to ask yourself these questions. Do I need to take this on? Or am I just used to taking this on? Very different. And that small shift, that can change everything. Third, return responsibility. Now, this one is powerful. Start asking yourself, what is actually mine to hold? And what am I holding that isn't? That's an important reframe. Also, giving yourself permission to not pick up that responsibility back again. Because remember, that tends to be our default setting. Because over time, we can begin to carry things that were never ours in the first place. Other people's urgency, other people's emotions, especially if you're an empath, like myself, other people's responsibilities. And we carry them so well that no one, including ourselves, questions it. But when you begin to gently place those things back where they belong, not abruptly, not harshly, but intentionally, you create that space. Space for others to step in. Space for yourself to breathe. Space for a different way of leading. And this is how things begin to shift with our patterns. Not all at once, but moment by moment. Choice by choice. And the more you practice this, the more natural it becomes. Not because you're doing more, but because you're carrying it in a different way. I'd like to close by sharing once again that your ability to hold a lot, that is not the problem. But you were never intended to hold everything. Sustainable success isn't built from how much we're able to carry. It's built on how well we can discern what's ours and what isn't. And if this resonated with you, I would love to continue the conversation. You can find me and connect with me on socials. My handles will be below this video. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Together we are global speakers talk.